Did Trump
Okay.
make a strategic
Powered by
mistake?
Riverside FM.
Okay, we're recording right
Yes.
now, but okay. Okay.
Dude, we don't
Today.
fuck the intro, dude. No intro.
Okay.
Let's just get started, yo. Like,
Okay, let's raw
dude,
dog this.
our intro is there. Sorry, dude. We don't have an intro, dude. Like,
Yeah, we don't
this
have an
is
intro.
Fucking, it's AIDS, man.
Okay, we're raw dogging this.
Yeah, dude.
Okay.
Like, if you want an intro, go to like another podcast. You're like, fuck. Don't want to
Okay.
waste your time. All right, just like get started, bro. Like,
Okay,
please.
we're started. Okay. So 2 weeks ago, I think, Trump started a tariff war with the world. He tariffed the whole world, basically.
Yeah. He tear up the whole world. Where are we going from here? All right, dude.
But why?
Why did he do it? Because he's
Why
an
did he
idiot.
do it? Like,
Okay, he's not he's not an idiot. It's just like, dude, man, Pax Americana. All right, dude. Like, here's my big spiel. All right, America was gonna be the greatest thing ever, and Trump just thought America is greater than it was. All right, it's like, in his mind, everyone wants to be a part of Pax Americana, and like America did all these things. Right, and he's read, like, if you listen to like the people he listens to, right, which you have to do that to sort of understand where he's coming from, and you realize, wait, like, this guy honestly believes, that America is much more powerful than it is, and the truth is America doesn't have that kind of power. So the common analogy that people use is like, or the common ism is like, oh, China took advantage of the United States, right? Like, China took over the WTO and it took over all these organizations, and it's just really bad. And that's just not true, right? Like, USA got a lot out of Chinese slave labor, right? Like, that's like the first sort of mistake or misconception, which is just like, USA got a lot out of Chinese slave labor. Right, U.S. corporate. All right, of course the U.S. What do you call it? The U.S.
the common folk.
Yeah, the common folk got screwed, right? Because the corporate people, instead of paying the wages that they should be paying, they went overseas and they used this arbitrage where they not only got ridiculously cheap prices, good workers, slaves essentially, they outsourced like totalitarian governments. So like, if in the UK, when they try to do this stuff during the Industrial Revolution, right, when the corporate people decided, hey, we're not going to pay you, we're going to work you like slaves, well, the people rebelled, and that's why we have things like today, like public education and welfare and no child labor and all these laws, right? Those are, and unions. Those are the result of the worker, the common folk, being fed up with all this unfettered greed that got sort of dealt with.
So
Right.
is it just like inequality problem that you're saying that it's like this is just a symptom of the inequality that's in America?
This is just a problem of a symptom of inequality.
Yeah,
What
this
problem?
tariff war.
This tariff
Like,
war?
yeah, this tariff war.
Well, it's one aspect of it, right? It's like the wealth inequality, right? And the poor people are upset, and and they blame this on China, but China didn't really actually do anything, right? So like that's number one, right? Like, China never. It's like, what do you expect China to do? Not. You know what I mean? Like, yes, you want to open a slave factory here, and we will keep our workers working on the assembly line for you if you pay us. Right? So like, China did that. Right? And US benefited a lot. It just didn't, like, none of the money went to the poor or the common folk.
Well, the counter argument would be like, since China is now like a peer competitor to the U.S. now, it should not be allowed to have like developing country status as a trading partner, right? So they shouldn't be able to have these supply side subsidies or like tariffs or like forced partnerships or technology transfers on their side, right? Because especially since they should be considered a pure competitor now to the U.S., right? So don't you think that has merit?
So I guess what you're saying is like, okay, so China does all these things to sort of circumvent or break U.S. monopoly, right? It's like, but the thing is, it's like the U.S. signed it, the agreement, right, ahead of time. It's not. It's like, yes, you can choose not to. You can just choose not to build your factory in China, right? Like at the time, it's not like they were dumb, right? Like, I would argue, right? Like if people believed in quote unquote American superiority and stuff like that, or American excellence, then like why would they sign it? Doesn't make any sense, right?
Well, the argument would be like to access the Chinese market because it's like if your competitor is making these agreements and making lots of money in China, because there's a huge long period of time, like 30, 40 years, where everyone was making a lot of money in China, right, through these partnerships. So it would be like not rational from a individual company's perspective to not participate in this.
Right.
But like at a nation state level, it's eroding your industrial base and your dominance, right, as a country, long term.
I mean, so if I'm looking at a country, should I be worried about it? The truth is, I wouldn't be. Like, uh, the U.S. the U.S. Poor, like, okay, this is actually like way more complicated. So, if we're looking at a country point of view, this is like the American grand strategy, right? Like, if we're talking about grand strategy, um, this is like the U.S. grand strategy is like it's just gonna onboard all these people or all these other countries onto the American fiat system and basically eventually take over the financial independence of all these other countries. Now that's a very how do you say big statement, and it requires a lot of breaking down. And do you want to get into that today?
Uh, let's not get into that. I think that's that's
Yeah,
just a
it's like
whole separate bag of can of worms that we don't
yeah,
want to get into. Let's just focus on the tariff war and trade
like
imbalance
how
and
you
unfair trade
unfair trade
or
imbalance.
supposed unfair trade.
The thing is, it's like the U.S. could have won. The U.S. didn't even need to start the trade war. Like the U.S. would have won without starting the trade war. So you know, it's like they never
like
needed to do anything.
I think it's in my opinion like it's like a like the idea is right, but the execution is horrible. It's just like plain horrible. It doesn't make any sense. There's like even from any 4D chess, 5D chess perspective, I don't think he's playing chess at all right now. Trump.
Yeah, I wouldn't disagree. It's the thing is with Trump is like his he's right. America can do it. They just can't do it all at the same time. You know, it's like if Canada if you wanted to sort of renegotiate trade with Canada, then you can do that first, right? You sort of say, hey, move all your factories here. I want to take over your economy. Okay, you do that, right? Or you annex Canada, whatever, right? But then it's like, okay, well, I want to do it to all these other countries. Okay, well, you go do that, right? But
Let's double click on Canada first in this
okay,
tariff war. Like, why did Trump decide to not settle like USMCA before like tariffing the rest of the world?
that's where my only logical sort of conclusion to this is that Trump overplayed his hand, right? It's like he thought it was much more powerful than it actually was.
And like
Yeah.
trade agreements don't like get resolved overnight. It takes like literally years to like sign and
Right.
hammer out, right? So like this is
Yeah, and we can see, but we can see from sort of Trump's this term where he's sort of much more, how do you say, impatient than he was in previous administration, right? Or even just in general. And you can say that it's because he's got new people in the administration who also don't understand how the world works. right? Or who also believe that you can do things a lot faster than they happen,
Hmm.
right? It's sort of like people who aren't in government, or like who don't know the amount of sort of effort it takes, right? Or the amount of bureaucracy there is, and levels to diplomacy that there are, right? It's like, oh, okay, we'll just tariff you, and then you can't do anything about it, haha, right? But that's not how it works,
So
right?
like, how would you have like done it? Like, let's start with like renegotiating USMCA, and then we can talk about renegotiating to trade with the rest of the world.
Well, so like if I were to do it, I wouldn't I wouldn't even focus on Canada, because I feel like Canada's already sort of super integrated into Pax Americana. Like you don't even need to you if the US wanted to do something to Canada, they don't even need to do it publicly. You know what I mean? Like they can just start dumping the US their Canadian treasury. You know what I mean? Like they can sort of like just threaten Canada behind the scenes. Like we'll make up some reason to screw you over until you guys do this. Right? Like let's say we want oil for even cheaper. Right? If I was the US. Like Trump's like, I'm worried about inflation. Right? Like there's this idea of like Trump, oh, we need more military, or like we need Canada to buy more military, we need Canada to do these other things, right? Or like we want Canada to become part of the United States. Like over time, Canada will just become part of the United States. You know what I mean?
I
Like
think effectively it's already basically the United States.
yeah,
Like,
well, yeah, yeah. I mean, there are people like it. So like the thing is, you a country is only independent when it has like an independent fiscal policy or monetary policy. It has its own resources, and it has its own military, right? So you can just chip away at this over time. And like Canada is already doesn't have basically doesn't have its own monetary policy. Its resource independence is questionable because even though the funny thing is it's like it has the oil, but U.S. processes it. So like that's so funny to me. It's just like, okay, well, you don't even process your own oil, right? So you don't really have resource independence. And then there's like military independence. And if Trump is worried about the Arctic, it's not going to be that fast. You know what I mean? Like
well, even fast.
like the there's this quote unquote of Russian expansion in the Arctic, or like Chinese expansion in the Arctic, right? And that's why he wants Greenland, and you can argue that's why he wants Canada, but like that stuff will take at least a decade or more. So he doesn't need to push it. You know what I mean? Right? You can just ask more and more Canadian FDI, right? I open up more American opportunities to Canada, and you sort of eventually just make the Canadian dollar useless. You get more opportunities for American dollar transactions from Canada, right? You just like tunnel away or chip away at the fiscal independence, right?
Yeah, like I have a feeling like Trump just doesn't listen to his advisors at all. He just
I,
wants to do it his way.
yeah, I don't.
And
I think he thought that like his first term he did such a good job, or he didn't do good enough job, and it was the fault of these advisors. But really, it
no,
was the advisors that got the stuff done. You know what I mean? So it was like he's like, okay, let me bring in these other guys, and they'll do better. But that we know now that was not the case. Yeah.
okay. Let's move on to like tariffing the rest of the world. Then, like, let's just say you pulled the levers that you talked about on Canada rather than having annex talk and all that stuff. But like, what about the rest of the world?
So like then after that, I mean, you can try to onboard like South America and make South America the new China. But there's a reason they never did that. It's just like you don't want the you don't want any of your neighbors in Pax Americana to get rich or to get strong, right? And then that's why you see
Trump has this disdain for Mexico, right? Or like the reason why Mexico, you're like, oh yeah, how come we never did this stuff in Mexico? It seems like such a good idea. It's the cartels. Like no, like the cartels are in power, or like the CIA makes the cartels fight each other all the time, right? Like we know this. They fund the cartels.
Yeah, what do you mean by that? Like, well,
What do you mean?
well, how does that benefit the CIA or America by funding the cartels?
Well, it keeps your neighbor weak, right? So like if you, so look right now, for example, pretend you're South Korea. You're so advanced, and what? Right? North Korea can still just like screw you over, because like if I'm beside you, let's say like we're fighting and I'm beside you, well all I need to do is be bigger than you are, right? Like I just need to be physically stronger and I can strangle you, right? But if I'm like 5 meter, 10 meters, then like if I have a knife, it's much better, right? And if we're like talking 20 meters, 30 meters, maybe a pistol, a dueling pistol, right? But if we're talking like a kilometer, then we're looking at a sniper rifle, and sort of as the distance and terrain and stuff increases, right? You scale it, it becomes more and more difficult to sort of destroy your opponent, and that's why, like, no matter what, South Korea is going to be scared of North Korea until they sort of resolve whatever their issue is, and America just right, and you just take this and put it to where America is. Like they never want a strong Canada or a strong um,
Mexico
Mexico,
or
strong South
Latin
America.
America?
Yeah, right. Like it's in there. Like the worst thing that can happen to the U.S. is like if somehow Brazil gets strong enough and starts bullying its neighbors, and then somehow uniting with its neighbors, maybe, and then bam, you got like this superpower in South America that has like maybe equivalent population, just as much resources, right? Industrial powerhouse, right? Like just imagine if Brazil was China right now. Like how screwed would the U.S. be? You know what I mean?
So why is the U.S. like supporting Argentina now then?
The U.S. Well, it's not really supporting Argentina, right?
Or
Like
just like lip service?
it's not lip service either, right? It's like as long as you don't develop a military, right? You don't industrialize like too hard, right? Which they're not, right? They're it's fine, right? As long as they're no longer a threat, It's like just imagine if Brazil turned into China, like how scary would that be?
But can't you say that Mexico is already industrializing?
Well, that's exactly why Trump's trying to renegotiate everything, because it's not good. It's very bad it's a danger to the American way of life or whatever.
So like you didn't mention India. Like where does India place in your calculus?
Like in terms of American thing, the problem with India is, I think everyone knows this. It's just like democracy, right? Like they have like a caste system, and then they have like bureaucracy, which is like you can say it's a result of democracy or it's caste system that like makes it dysfunctional. Which I mean Modi's addressing. So, but yeah,
No. I'm talking about like how U.S. can leverage India in the trade war.
The thing is, India's smart. They're not gonna, right. Just like with Russia, like they're not just not gonna be a part of it. And like they know they're important enough and strong enough to be like, okay, well, even if I don't listen to you completely, there's nothing you can do to me, right? Like you're not gonna do anything stupid, right? So that's sort of India's very smart at the top. Like
You
they
mean
know.
like India buying Russian oil?
Yeah, exactly, right? Like India buying Russian oil, like India's gonna take care of itself. It'll always focus on itself, which is the right thing to do, because you don't want to turn into like a Ukraine or some other one of these NATO countries that But the thing is, India's a major power, so it doesn't need to rely on sort of American power or whatever to survive. So
Well, like, what I'm asking is like, will the U.S. use like India, sort of like what they use China for in the first Cold War between like the U.S. and the Soviet, right? So
Oh,
like
okay.
as a countering party power to
I
like
mean,
because like
it already
Indian
is.
Chinese relations are not like great.
Yeah.
So when they want to like leverage that to benefit the U.S.
For sure. Like I mean, India's gonna play both sides, which is also the right thing to do for India, right? Like but India also doesn't want, in my opinion, India doesn't want China to fall, because it's like if China falls, right? First of all, India's got problems with Pakistan, but let's assume that Pakistan somehow is not part of the equation. So like, if China falls, who's the next superpower? It's India. So like, if you're India, you're like, and you have this idea that I'm gonna be the one that comes after China, or like when U.S. falls, me and China are gonna duke it out, right? It's not really in your interest until you're super strong, right? Until you're ready to take the mantle for either of them to fall, because then you're just gonna be the one, sort of being targeted,
Mm.
right? And that's also why you can't trust both parties. Like you got to play both parties. You can't just be like, oh yeah, let me just cozy up to China or cozy up to U.S. right? Because like like you know right like maybe today the tariffs are on China, tomorrow they're on you. Right? Today it's like problems in the South China Sea, but let's say South China just gets completely wrecked. Tomorrow it'll be problems in the Indian Ocean, right? Like you'll start seeing some sort of containment strategy on India, right? Maybe Pakistan gets a bunch of funding,
Mm.
right? And the U.S. does give Pakistan a bunch of funding, right? Right, there are all
So
the
like, India will just continue to play all sides until they get strong enough to challenge anyone else.
yeah, and they should. And honestly, India has so many structural problems itself. It needs to fix all those structural issues before it can sort of grow into the superpower that it should be, or like the regional power or whatever, right? That it should be, that is rightfully its place.
So let's go back to like how you would like execute on this tariff war strategy. Like you mentioned that we don't want you don't want to make Latin America strong. So do you necessarily want to make India strong?
Like okay, when you're asking this, are you assuming that I like this before Trump or like Trump now?
Trump
Because
now,
like
now. Let's say it's Trump. Like let's say you're Trump. You're in Trump's shoes on Liberation Day. You what would you do? Like because you basically your objective is to undermine Chinese trade with the rest of the world, right? Or
yeah.
disrupt it.
Well, like now, like Trump could have just done nothing, and U.S. would have won, and Trump could have focused on more domestic priorities, and and that's sort of the problem, because like if Trump focused on domestic priorities, he would quote unquote have to eat the rich, and he doesn't want to do that. He doesn't want to fix the actual problems that like, U.S. faces. But
So like he can just coast on like Biden's foreign policy.
yeah, sort of, yeah. He could have, right? He could have just kept doing the same thing, but he's not gonna. His base or whatever is not gonna be happy with that, right? So that's the reason why he didn't do it, but he really could have just done nothing, right? If he didn't start the trade war, America was gonna just win, right?
Like yeah, that's what I thought he was gonna do when he got elected, but he literally did something that I think is like really damaging to the reputation of America long term. Right? And you see like people like Ken Griffin and even like I don't know like some other like finance people saying like the reputation of America has been like permanently tarnished. Like even
Tarnished.
like the Prime Minister of Canada is like saying like our relationship with the U.S. is like never gonna be the same. Like and people are even talking about canceling F-35 orders or like not using them in the future. Like well, how do you reconcile this?
So the only thing, right? Again, I sort of focused on is just resource independence, economic independence, and military independence, right? And so the F-35s, I think it's too late to cancel that. It's just like there's no other airplane you would rather buy, right? And like if you want to buy like Swedish, let's say you want to buy the Gripen, right? The Swedish Air Force military. You're like, I'm right. Well, the U.S. can just the Gripen uses U.S. parts. It's basically a U.S. plane, right? And the U.S. can just do a lot of things under the table to make sure that that doesn't happen, right? Like Trump does a lot of things directly. He lets you know he's doing it. But the U.S. could have done all of this covertly, right? So like, oh, you know, you need this American part. Well, hey, I'm sorry, this American part ran into production issues. Like you're not gonna get the part, right?
Basically, what China does, like
Yeah,
these,
you can just do that.
plausible
Right? Oh,
deniability.
yeah. It's like, right? And then diplomats, they'll be like, oh, yo, how come I don't get the part, or how come I can't make any more Gripens, right? Oh, you got 100 Gripen jets. I'm sorry, your defense system, the electronic warfare system. Oh, it's not connected to the, whatever.
Oh, but
Right?
does it not have merit? Like what they like from understand F-35s requires like literally basically daily patches. Even if you can't disable the plane, like
Yeah.
without these daily patches, your planes will become obsolete extremely quickly. So let's say there's because like the U.S. literally threatened to annex two NATO countries. So
Yeah, but that's
like
the point,
yeah.
right? Like the U.S. doesn't want any of its, like, if you want to say allies or vassal states, whatever, to have military independence. So like, I want you to use my hardware. I want you to use my thing because I have the kill switch. You know what I mean, right? I want you to not be able to develop your own military system, and a lot of that was, right. You can say, oh yeah, well that's, Sweden's fault, or that's, Denmark's fault, right? And that's why France never gave up its military independence, right? And
They arguably they still are not like pure competitors to the U.S. I think if I
France.
understand, yeah, they're still like fourth gen fighters. They're not.
Yeah, of
fifth,
course they're not, right?
It's only like Russia, China, and the U.S. that have fifth gen fighters, right?
Yeah, yeah. Well, and so like if I was like any of the NATO allies, right, and my goal was to make my own country a superpower or an independent power, then I wouldn't buy F-35s. Like I wouldn't have joined NATO. I wouldn't. Oh, actually, yeah, I probably would have joined NATO. But it's like, NATO's too good. It's just a free ride. But like in terms of, I would try to get independence in all three areas, or at least be hedged, right? Like Turkey. Turkey's sort of hedged. They've got the S-400s, right?
But they
They're
don't
not
have
getting.
F-35s anymore, right?
Yeah, but so, right?
Oh, isn't
They,
S-400s like kind of shit in practice?
S-400s kind of shit. Well, it depends, right? Like it depends. Like I mean, let's say your whole military hardware, all your hardware is the U.S. and U.S. shuts it down. I mean, that's also a zero too. Like what do you mean, right? So
That's
it's
true.
not shit. At least your S-400s would work, right? Right? And you still have your F-16s or whatever they have, right? Like you have your F-15s or Tomcats or whatever they're using, right? F-22s maybe. No, I don't think
But
they
like,
have F-22s.
but like, do you think like the sentiment like where U.S. allies are literally picking negative expected value outcomes, like just to spite the U.S. Like people are like, I'm gonna boycott U.S. XYZ, even if it's my own outcomes are gonna be worse, just to spite the U.S. Because we see this, right?
Are we talking on a nation level or on a citizen level?
Both, right? Like you see Ontario and like several provinces, like they're literally they stopped importing Kentucky bourbon, right?
Yeah, but that's not
and
that doesn't
Tesla
affect.
cars, right?
But that doesn't affect the government, right? That affects the citizens, right? So like, citizens aren't gonna, like, you don't see citizen outrage over this, right?
But
So
in
it's
aggregate, it makes a big difference in aggregate, right? You see, even like U.S. tourism has dropped like
right.
enormously,
So
right?
yeah, U.S. tourism. So like this is, yeah. So all of these trade wars are bad for the U.S. But in terms of like, is Canada doing something bad for itself? No, not really, right?
Well,
And I'm
like,
sure there's already
like,
a deal underway.
like,
in
like,
Canada.
like for example, like picking the fourth gen fighters versus the fifth gen fighters when they're like objectively worse, right?
Well, they can't. Well, like your fifth gen fighters are, if you're saying if somehow Canada buys what, What are they
or
gonna
like
buy?
or Denmark or whoever like buys the Swedish jets or French jets versus instead of the Lockheed
Yeah,
jets.
but you gotta, but you gotta understand, like, what are you fighting though, right? Like, is it really that bad?
Hmm.
You know what I mean? Like, what are you gonna fight? A bunch of like a Russian invasion? Like, honestly, if I was in any of these like NATO countries, I wouldn't even I wouldn't even invest in the military for now. It's like there's no sort of threat. There's no there's no war.
But they effectively don't. Like the
They
UK has a
effectively exactly.
standing army
E-
of like 75,000.
Exactly, right? That's the whole point. And that's why they did that, right? It's like they're already min-maxing what they can get away with. And that's and it's sort of a feedback cycle, right?
Hmm.
It's like so how it was supposed to go was okay, we give you security, you focus purely on economics, and you pay us for security by investing in our treasury bonds and buying all this stuff and doing all of that, right? And that's how it's like a symbiotic relationship,
Hmm.
right? And then you'll just keep buying our military goods and you'll keep buying our stuff, and you don't need your own industrial base, right? You don't need your own. We're never gonna give you the best tech. We're just gonna develop it in our country so that you just invest here, right? And then so like all these militaries, major economies, they sort of start degrading their military, right? And then the problem was the U.S. just got too much debt. They overspent. So now they're like, okay, well, I need more money to fund my military. And you can also say U.S. military got incompetent, right? Like the military-industrial complex got too bureaucratic, right? There you got like the Iraq and Afghanistan war, where they just waste a bunch of money for no reason, right? There's a lot of bad decisions, natural apathy, and um,
Well,
just
also I think
degradation.
like they geared their military to fight like wars like Iraq and Afghanistan versus fighting a peer competitor. Now they realize they're so behind. They cannot really fight a peer competitor right now.
I mean, it's fine though, right? Like if you're Europe, you just continue doing the thing, right? Like you're never you're not. I don't think Europe's worried about fighting a war with Russia because you got Poland in the way, you know,
Mm.
right? So
And
you got
Poland's
Poland in the way, and like if Russia's struggling so much with Ukraine, what are the chances of them getting past Ukraine and fighting Poland, and then getting past Poland into fighting Germany? Like it's not really happening. Not really gonna happen. So if you're Europe or mainland Europe, if the U.S. comes to you and says, well, like, we're not going to sell you any more Patriots, we're not going to sell you any more F-35s, right? Which is like the threat. If I'm Germany, right, I'll be like, okay, that's fine. Like I have 10, 20 years to sort of wait before Russia, right, can fight again, and in that time, I'll stop buying U.S. military hardware. I'll develop my own hardware over 20 years, right? I'll sort of build. I'll work with other countries that are not gonna build U.S. military to like develop my own, and that would be like one of the negotiations I would have with the U.S. Ultimately, I think the U.S. is gonna win, like in terms of like Germany or whatever, right? They're gonna ultimately cave. Germany, the UK, and the things, but it's like this negotiation or this like would have never gotten into this place in the to begin with if Trump didn't just declare war on everyone,
mm.
right?
All right. Let's just end on that.
All right,
All right.
sounds good.